Feminism, the male and female gaze, the subject of textiles, social media, the digital age, crafts, the aesthetics of the mid-century. These are all things that I find deeply interesting. Taking these interests and putting them into a brief, that was quite difficult for me. I knew I wanted to make my brief more relevant to today and create something that was useful for the situation that we have been in throughout the last year with COVID-19. And through many iterations, I came up with the question, how has the rise of digital interactions affected our perception of touch? With a focus on the isolation felt nationally throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. I should have known at this point, this is a huge topic to try and answer in such little time. Looking back now, I can really see the mistakes I made here. I knew at the time that creating my first ever brief was going to be very challenging, and looking back at it now, I can see so many improvements that I could make to this brief. Through my mood boards, you can see I've kind of conveyed a fun, silly almost feeling to the mood boards. There is something at this point in the project in week 2 that I wanted to convey, because my own feelings towards the contrasts of touching a screen when you really want to be in touching real people. I think that was a really interesting topic I was kind of trying to get my head around at this point in the project, and looking through my mood boards now, I think a lot more of this like fun or strange kind of juxtapositions between objects and hands, this could have been brought through into my work a lot more to get my point across better. And going through into my project development, I think it's very clear that my ideas are still very art-based rather than design-based. I think I'm still trying to work out at this point in the project how to create something that is design rather than art. And coming back to, me from the future, like talking about this, at the end of the project, I can definitely see how to transform those ideas and that side of conceptual thinking into something that can be a piece of design rather than a piece of art. A really interesting piece of feedback I got at the end of my project that links back into this is perhaps transforming what I've created into a form of book where it is like a textual element that could have been helpful for people to really touch things that weren't just screen time, and kind of desensitize themselves or resensitize themselves to real textures, not just a glass screen on a phone. Through my interests last term, in my first term of university, I really found a love for working with type, and I wanted to bring that into the project. And I've done that via creating 2 pieces of type-based work, one by hand and one digitally, which was really, really helpful, the digital one, to just improve my confidence with the software. As only 6 months ago, I barely could have done anything on Illustrator or Photoshop. So I'm really proud of myself for pushing myself outside my comfort zone here and creating something that I am proud of visually, just conceptually needs some work. If I could go back and relive this project, I think there's multiple changes I would do. I think firstly, taking the idea, the concept that I'd kind of wanted to play with, and applying that to a real life experience rather than just relying on what I know to put a work in a gallery. I wanted to give myself a few weeks after the project to really be able to look back on it with fresh eyes and look at how I was applying the things that I knew to the project rather than pushing myself to learn new things. I think I was trying just to stay within my comfort zone and apply that to a design thing, which doesn't really work, as I found out. And looking back at it now, a few weeks later, I can really see how I could have applied this much better to a design audience. Like I said, somebody suggested turning this into a book, or even just like turning this into some sort of campaign or something through social media to actually try to connect people with physical things, even like a marketing thing for doing crafts and having something physical to do to get away from screen time. I think there could have been a lot more research in my project done on that subject, which would have really helped to steer me in the right direction. Overall, I am happy with this project because I think it really shows my growth when compared to my second project that I'm working on this term. I think this project really helped me learn how to write a brief in the future, how to manage my time better, and how to use the ideas that I have in a more design appropriate way rather than relying on what I know in the art world to communicate my ideas. Ultimately, I know now for the next projects going forward to push myself more, to keep thinking conceptually and work on those ideas, and how to adapt my way of thinking, my work, to the design world.